observe a moment of silent prayer and meditation. You may be seated. Let me just get rid of this mask. Good afternoon, honorable members. Let me acknowledge the Premier, the MECs, and all honorable members in the House this afternoon. I also acknowledge everyone who is following today's sitting from Pumakapa TV, Umhlobo Wenene FM, our community radio stations, those watching us on social networks such as Facebook and YouTube. Goeiemiddag mense, good afternoon. They will, yeah, I've already done that. Can I, honorable members, before we start this proceeding, I think it is just correct that, let me see how many women, yeah, we do have. We must also remember that today is the International Women's Day. And I think it is just fitting that we just acknowledge the hashtag Break the Bias program that is out there, and that we, during this program, yes, Honorable Benjamin, let's all take our pictures, let's put them on our Facebook in remembrance of the fight of women for recognition. We are very fortunate in South Africa, in the Eastern Cape, for the groundbreaking work and our very democratic policies that we are having, but we know the scourge of gender-based violence is on the increase. Hey, there's members that is speaking very loud at the back. Honorable members, don't do that when we are speaking. I must not hear you. That's the rule. So I think we have a responsibility of members, the platforms that we are using, that we consistently, that we advocate for the rights of women and the emancipation of women. And Honorable Pillay has posted an article. Please read that article. If all men can be so bold, Honorable Premier, and consistently ensure that the plight of women and the issues surrounding women is taken up in that manner, I'm quite sure we will have a far different Eastern Cape and a far different South Africa and a far different society that acknowledges women as part of the society. So let's not forget to go out there and ensure that we spread the word and keep the issues of women on the forefront of whatever we do. Honorable members, today, in compliance with COVID-19 regulations issued in terms of the Disaster Management Act, we have placed some honorable members in the public gallery. As such, we are required in terms of the powers, privileges, and immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act of 2004 to declare that as part of the chamber. Therefore, no other persons may sit in the areas designated for honorable members, with the exception of members of the media who have been designated places far from the honorable members. Those members of the media advise that they are in the House under the direction of the Honorable Speaker in terms of Section 118, subsection 1B1 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, and they are therefore requested to respect the decorum of the House, both in the bottom part as well as in the top part of the chamber. Now, honorable members, I shall now ask the Secretary to read the first order of the day. Thank you. Yes, you've got it. Thank you, Secretary. I will now call upon the MEC for Finance to introduce the Appropriation Bill 2022-23. Over to you, MEC Mvoko. You can do better than that, honorable members. Can somebody please assist, because really the volume is much stronger. Technicians, please. This is the MEC's moment. Don't steal it away from him. Let's not go there now.
Please don't start that. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, Honorable members of the Executive Council, Honorable members of the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature, executive mayors and mayors, traditional leaders, religious leaders, leaders of the Chapter 9 institutions, leaders of state-owned companies, political parties present, organized labor, business fraternity, the DG, HODs and senior government officials, our esteemed guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Good day. Goeiemiddag, molweni. As you indicated, Honorable Speaker, today is International Women's Day. I must start by saying happy International Women's Day to all the super women that we have here and in the country. Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, let me also take this opportunity to recognize members of public who are watching and listening to us through different broadcasting channels, including social media. This is their budget. It is with great honor and privilege that I table before this esteemed House the 2022 estimates of the Provincial Revenue and Expenditure, the 2022 estimates of the Provincial Entities Revenue and Expenditure, the 2022 Budget Policy Statement, and the 2022 Appropriation Bill, the 2022 Gazette. The copy of the Gazette detailing transfer payments to municipalities, schools, and hospitals is already available on the government printer's website. Honorable members, we meet here today after a resounding State of the Province address by the Eastern Cape Premier, Honorable Oscar Mabuyane. He has once again provided leadership and a clear program of action. Our task now is to align budget with the provincial priorities that he has set. We do this under constrained economic conditions owing to the historic structure of the economy and the recent COVID-19 pandemic that has had a negative impact to our economy. In spite of this, we remain committed to addressing our service delivery shortcomings. We once again make a call to each government institution to make great effort and strategic choices that would advance our strides for service delivery and achieve our clarion call of a better life for all. The Eastern Cape economy in the third quarter of 2021 declined by negative 1.8%, emulating the negative 1.5% contraction of the national economy during the same quarter. We observed a decline in many of our sectors of the economy in quarter 3 of 2021. Agriculture declined by 0.4%, by negative 4.1%, wholesale and retail trade by negative 6.6%, and transport and communication by 2.9%. However, we were encouraged by the reported growth in the first and second quarter of 21-22, in spite of the third quarter economic performance having declined. We are consequently optimistic of the growth trajectory as we forge ahead. Likewise, the recovery of both national and provincial economies is anticipated over short-term, medium-term, propelled mainly by higher commodity prices, higher domestic and global demand for agricultural produce, particularly citrus, pineapples, and deciduous fruit, and manufactured exports.
Sound can come through. You are keeping it down too low.
I'm not used to holding the microphone. I'm used to the microphone being on something. It's not from me. I don't know where's that from. So my apologies for that. Am I now audible now? Thank you very much. I'm hoping that because on my side it's reflecting as if I'm not. Over the next 3 years, GDP growth is expected to average 1.8%. Correspondingly, the Eastern Cape economy is projected to moderately grow at 1.8% in 2022 and average at 1.3% growth in 2023. A number of factors, including slow economic recovery and high expenditure in 2021, 2020-21 and 21-22 financial years. That was a result of countering the effects of COVID-19 on public health, livelihoods, and the economy. Even though operating under such a fiscal framework, we are, however, living in hope that the increase on tax revenue collections, as reported by the National Treasury, will be sustained to have positive yields into our fiscal space. Honorable members, the total receipts for the Eastern Cape for 2022 is 87,673 million and is estimated at 260.166 billion for the full 2022 Medium Term Expenditure Framework. Of the 87.673 billion, 86.081 billion is national transfers, which is made up of 72.230 billion of the provincial equitable share allocations and 13.850 billion for conditional grants. The province is projecting to collect 1.59 billion, 1 billion of own receipts. You can deduce from there that we are not doing very good in terms of collecting our revenue as a province. The equitable share formula was reviewed for 2022-23 financial year, and an amount of 557.610 million was added to our baseline due to adjustments from the impact of new data updates in the provincial equitable share formula. The equitable share formula is heavily based on population stats. Therefore, the more a province loses its population, the more it loses on its equitable share allocation. In light of this, we encourage the people of the Eastern Cape to be vigilant and be counted during this this period of census 2022. Being counted will have a great equitable share benefit for the government and the people of the Eastern Cape. I'm hoping, Honorable Premier, that all your executive members have been counted, and Honorable Speaker, I'm hoping that the members of the provincial legislature have also been counted. This would be a benefit the province a great deal. Madam Speaker, the provincial equitable share was adjusted over the 2022 MTF with a total nominal increase of 9.621 billion. This increase is a result of continued engagements with various intergovernmental platforms in mobilizing the much-needed resources for education and health. Significant to note is that the total provincial payments on 2022-23 amount to 86.428 billion, and this reflects a budget deficit that we fund through own provincial receipts. The bulk of this year's budget goes to the social cluster in the amount of 69.808 billion. 13.649 billion goes to the economic cluster and 2.9 billion to the governance cluster. Honorable Speaker, the Minister of Finance in the National Budget speech indicated that the national gross debt is projected to increase from 4.35 trillion to 5.43 trillion in 2024-25, which constitutes 69.5% of GDP in 2021-22 and increasing to 75.1% of GDP in 2024-25. This is a reality that all of us must contend with, especially the continued budget deficit that the country is seized with from year to year, which has a direct impact on our financial resource allocation as the province. This House will recall that we lost 54 billion from the 2013-2014 financial year up to the 2021 MTF. The amount that was lost to the provincial equitable share alone in the 2021 MTF amounted to 28.245 billion, which the government had to reprioritize due to the government wage freeze and fiscal consolidation. We should be worried that the compensation of employees accounts for 65.4% of the total provincial budget in 2022-23. This leaves us with only 34.6% for the provincial government to fulfill its mandate of delivering services to the people of this province. Madam Speaker, just to go back to the matter of provincial equitable share that was adjusted over the 2022 MTF, resulting to us receiving an amount of 9.6 billion rand. The funding received accounts for the wage agreement and to a greater extent to cater for spending pressures in the Department of Health and the Department of Education as well as Social Development. The budget pressures and other incidences that we continue to experience in health and education put a strain in our already depleted envelope, which is impacting negatively on our resolve to fund economic growth in the province. Measures to improve liquidity position, Madam Speaker. I think it's important that I allay some fears by talking to some of the measures that we are taking to improve the liquidity position of the province. In each term of government, we are always faced with challenges of one form or another from the Departments of Health and Education, and as provincial government, supported by the legislature, we are addressing these challenges. Although currently experiencing a challenge of limited fiscal space to maneuver, I believe we are on the right path to addressing the challenges in these departments with a strong leadership from our Honorable Premier. From the perspective of health in particular, we have elevated the interventions that we embarked upon in the recent past to deal decisively with the issue of the medical legal claims, which accounts for the biggest part of these challenges. In addition to this, we are working with the departments to improve efficiencies across the system, focusing on these pillars: optimization of budget, increase income streams, decrease losses and manage risk, digitalization and efficiencies, and cost saving. These measures, in a nutshell, seek to address the department's cost of employment, their infrastructure, and their supply chain processes. They also seek to decrease clinical risks, deal with fraud and corruption, digitalization of systems, and widen their revenue sources. They are currently being implemented with the participation of national government, in particular Department of Health, Justice, Public Service and Administration, as well as National Treasury. During this course of this year, we'll unpack some of these measures to some levels of detail. For the time being, I would call on everyone who shows genuine concern on the challenges from these departments to be patient as we deal with them. I know that we are not very patient when it comes to the challenges pertaining to these departments. Honorable Speaker, the 2022 medium-term main policy priorities are economic recovery and fiscal consolidation as we tread these uncharted territories. This budget is characterized with budget reprioritization, balancing the liquidity of the Provincial Revenue Fund. This therefore means we cannot do everything we want at the same time. This is why I always encourage all departments and entities to become ambassadors to mobilize resources through the district development model platform. I think we are not utilizing this platform of the district development model to mobilize funding for the province. Must also use the national intergovernmental structures and partnering with the private sector initiative so as to utilize each and every rand in most efficient, effective, and economical way. The idea here is for the revenue to outperform expenditure. Lastly, as we deploy a range of fiscal and monetary measures to avert the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and limit economic damages, it's critically important that each institution makes strategic choices that would advance our strides for service delivery and achieve our clarion call of a better life for all. Madam Speaker, at the top of our immediate agenda is the consensus effort to grow the economy and create jobs, especially after the economic devastation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. To achieve this, provincial government endorsed an economic reconstruction and recovery plan aimed at supporting business sector towards saving jobs and surviving during the COVID-19 pandemic. The core of this plan is to improve investment on economic infrastructure and setting up an industrial base for manufacturing to enable equitable and inclusive transformation, digitalization, and public finance. To improve our competitiveness in the delivery of infrastructure, we have appointed Kucha Development Corporation to coordinate our infrastructure delivery program and assist with packaging infrastructure projects. This arrangement is also aimed at enhancing our chances of getting funding from sources such as the Budget Facility for Infrastructure and Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium, including the private sector. Honorable Speaker, tourism is one of the sectors that contribute massively to our GDP. And due to the beauty and potential that we possess as a province, that has been made possible. It was, however, one of the sectors that was hit hard by the COVID-19 related restrictions and regulations. Due to our confidence in that potential and the contribution it has made to our economy over the years, we identified tourism as an enabler to achieve our economic growth and job creation objectives. We are moving ahead with phase 2 of the 32-kilometer long Hluleka Nature Reserve road. The route is part of the Wild Coast Meander route that provides access to the tourist destination of Hluleka Nature Reserve. It links the communities along the route with the St. Barnabas Hospital. This project is currently at procurement stage, and an award is expected to be made in April 2022. A budget of 15 million rand has been allocated to this project in 2022-23. All this work we are doing to attract potential tourists, both domestically and abroad, as this will benefit our economy and job creation. As an enabler for economic growth, we have allocated 4.951 billion to the Department of Transport for 2022-23 and a total of 15.068 billion over the 2022 MTF to, among other mandates, improve our road infrastructure. In this regards, we continue with the implementation of our roads flagship projects, including two-phased upgrading of the 20-kilometer long Clarkbury Road between N2 and R61, with a total allocation of 40.568 million allocated over the 2022 MTF. Phase 1 of this project is under construction, and phase 2 is currently at tender stage and is expected to be awarded during May 2022. We also continue with the upgrading of the 12-kilometer road stretch from Stakespruit to Mlamli Hospital with a total allocation of 94.402 million allocated over the 2022 MTF. This project is inclusive of 4 bridges. To ensure affordable public transport for people in the most rural areas, an amount of 637.196 million has been allocated in the 2022-23 and a total of 1.976 billion over the 2022 MTF for our people to have access to subsidized passenger services. Honorable members, the Eastern Cape commands the biggest footprint of auto sector in South Africa, boasting 4 of 7 OEMs that are operating in South Africa and up to 118 major component manufacturers. Our manufacturing base accounts for 6.8% of gross domestic product. To support the sector's economic drive, we are allocating an amount of 93.9 million rand over the 2022 MTF to ECDC's subsidiary, AITC. I'm certain that many people have not heard about AITC in this platform, but we are beginning to make sure that we all know about AITC. Honorable members, just like the auto sector, agriculture is one of the sectors of our economy that have performed well over the years, also owing to our comparative agri-land advantage. In this regard, the province is allocating 2.328 billion rand for 2022-23 and 7.094 billion rand over the 2022 MTF to the Department of Rural Development and Agrarian Reform to provide a sustainable agricultural sector and rural livelihoods and security for our people. There's a Premier party rural development is a Their focus for this year include commercialization of agricultural value chain to industrialize and transform the agricultural sector, to enhance infrastructure development, to enable economic growth, and to address agri-entrepreneur skills development in line with the province's job creation and economic transformation and education skills and health priorities. From their total budget, we are allocating 134.871 million rand in 2022-23 and 411.446 million over the 2022 MTF to improve agriculture infrastructure in order to support commercialization of all commodities in the province. We are also allocating an amount of 263.380 million in 2022-23 and 829.320 million over the 2022 MTF to improve productivity of crop production by providing inputs and mechanization services. Additionally, support will be provided to 370 livestock enterprises to enhance herd productivity through distribution of improved genetic material to smallholder and communal farms. Madam Speaker, at the heart of South Africa's economic reconstruction and recovery plan is the goal of building a new, fast-growing and more inclusive economy propelled by greater levels of public and private sector investment. The province continues to embark on a sustainable economic recovery through our very own SEZ. As part of support, the province is allocating 19 million rand in the 2022-23, 19.836 million rand in 2023-24, and 20.72 million rand in 2024-25 to CDC as their operational expenditure. I'm certain that they would be smiling a bit. CDC, I will not get a call from the chair asking for more allocation. The East London Industrial Development Zone continues with its strides in positioning the zone as the investment destination in the Eastern Cape. At the end of the third quarter of the 2021-22 financial year, an investment amount valued at 20.5 billion had already been recorded for 85 potential investors, and this will create 10,059 job opportunities. For this financial year, an amount of 37 million rand is allocated to the East London SEZ for auto sector manufacturing incubator. The other 37 million rand will come from the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition, another commendable example of strategic sourcing of funding. Honorable members, we can all agree that our SEZs have performed very well. Honorable members, we are en route to resuscitating Eastern Cape Development Corporation to optimal performance. We view ECDC as one entity that can transform our economic standing as a province. Its main support mandates in that regard relates to property development and modernization, investment promotion, and development financing. Although under a constrained fiscal environment, the province is providing funding to ECDC in the amount of 179 million rand for the 2022 MTF. The funds are earmarked for the recapitalization of the loan support for SMMEs and cooperative sector benefit, and support the property modernization and development in the province. Another share of it is for the film industry support, aimed at ensuring that the creative industry is able to stimulate economic activity, drive transformation, create jobs and entrepreneurial opportunities within the province. I must reiterate, Madam Speaker, that this is a start to positioning ECDC at the forefront of our economic recovery plan and job creation. We are confident in the new leadership and the turnaround strategy that they have presented, that indeed we are now going to see an ECDC that we all desire. Honorable members, we have in the recent past provided funding support to youth enterprises with startup capitals in the form of Fiscal Youth Fund through a stimulus fund. This fund was initially designed as a once-off mechanism to boost a struggling economy. We still believe that there is still a need to continue with this sort of financial support, considering that the economy has not reached satisfactory levels to support small business. This is a subject that we'll consider, and a pronouncement in this regard will be made during the adjustment budget. Also, honorable members, as we open up industries and opportunities to ignite economic growth and job creation, we also understand that there is an urgent need for business support in the form of capital investment. For far too long, there has been an outcry over the lack of financial instruments to assist the emerging businesses. In an effort to address this, provincial government is now at an advanced stage of establishing a development fund framework. We will expand on this in the next budget, which is on the budget, either in the MTBBS or in the next budget of 23-24. Honorable members, the revitalization of the Eastern Cape state-owned industrial parks remains a key priority to enable reindustrialization of sectors in the province for economic growth and job creation. In this respect, both aggressive infrastructure investment and energy security are among the highest implementation priorities. We have so far reached different levels of our phased infrastructure upgrades in various industrial parks that are found in the province. With the support of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, these industrial parks will soon be ready for business. Honorable members, we're forging ahead with the infrastructure development for the establishment of the agro-processing sector development in the Wild Coast region towards regional economic development and agricultural sector development. The DTIC contributed an amount of 29.75 million for a cumulative period of 3 financial years, and the business case was found to be viable, leading to establishment of a PMO by the DDIT to start planning. The PMO was further funded by over 80 million rand through the stimulus fund facility over a period of 3 financial years. In addition, the DDIT allocated in 2020 an amount of 37.6 million rand of capital expenditure for perimeter security fencing for the industrial estate, which is situated adjacent to the Mthatha Airport. Late in 2021, the DTIC further approved an amount of 49.974 million for construction of bulk infrastructure, which is projected to commence in the 2022-23 financial year. We are aware that this project is not complete, and the Project Management Office needs funding to continue its work to attract investment to where DTIC will consider SEZ designation. We will make announcement in regards with regards to this in the adjustment budget. Once operational, the Wild Coast SEZ will give the economy of the eastern side of our province a competitive advantage, considering that these kind of initiatives were only found at the border and the western side of our province. Honorable members, in 2022 MTF, provincial government will undergo supply chain management reforms that seek to promote timeous delivery of services, but also ensuring quality and value for money. During the MTBBS in December 2021, I highlighted the observation of the bad habit where departments would roll out their procurement plans very late in a financial year, which sometimes would lead to underspending, and they would lead to fiscal dumping and lead to poor service delivery. To address this, departments are now obligated to finalize their procurement plans a year prior to the year of implementation and also align them with the budget. I'm also glad to report that some departments have already embarked on the procurement processes for goods and services that will be required in the 2022-23 financial year. There is a strong drive to bring other departments on board, and in this regard, support is being provided to selected departments on an intervention basis. It's our objective to reach a stage where departments would have finalized the procurement processes for all contracts in the year prior to the actual expenditure. This will not only ensure spending of allocated budgets, but also will ramp up service delivery. This initiative will improve the spending performance of departments to leverage their purchasing power, reduce costs, and improve their overall performance. Madam Speaker, despite the current economic conditions, we remain committed to deliver on our apex priorities. Consequently, we continue to channel the bulk of our provincial equitable share to respond to spending pressures in education, health, and social development sectors. For 2022-23 financial year, we are allocating 38.559 billion to the Department of Education to improve access to quality basic education. And I'm certain you would know that this is the biggest slice of our budget. In this regard, we are allocating 4.668 billion to the Department's National School Nutrition Program over the 2022 Medium Term Expenditure Framework. For 2022-23, we are allocating 1.494 billion rand to benefit 4,941 schools in the province, with over 1.6 million rand learners expected to benefit. We continue to support the department's provision of adequate learner teacher support material at schools. As such, we have set aside an amount of 2.130 billion rand for the 2022 MTF period, with 654.075 million allocated in 2022-23 for the annual procurement of textbook and stationery for all learners in grades R to grade 12. So MEC Kate will have no excuse not to procure in advance in this financial year for next year. To support the province's strategy to improve grade 12 results, we are allocating 302.301 million rand to the department over the 2022 MTF to assist underperforming schools to improve their metric results. Of this funding, 96.49 million rand is for the year 22-23. So again, we're expecting MEC Kate to improve on his performance. We're putting pressure for him. $1.016 billion in 24-25 to address cost pressures that are experienced by the Department of Education. We are also adding $1.006 billion in 23-23 financial year and $1.011 billion for 23-24 to the department to continue hiring education assistants as part of the Presidential Employment Initiative. Madam Speaker, the early childhood development function shift from the Department of Social Development to the Department of Education has been concluded. In that regard, we have added an amount of $221.152 million in 22-23, $221.865 million in 23-24, and $231.826 million in 24-25 to the baseline of education to ensure seamless education system. Additionally, an early childhood development grant of $199.459 million in 2022-23, $199.728 million in 2023-24, and $208.697 in 2024-25 has also been allocated to education, also in support of the function shift. So we have catered for the Department of Education to ensure that they have very few challenges. It is up to the portfolio committee to follow up on all the monies given to the department. I know MEC Nkomonye wishes that she could be MEC for education, but does not wish for more. Now, for the past 2 years, the government has been grappling with the COVID-19 pandemic, necessitating government to reprioritize a large budget to its response strategy, putting a further strain on our fiscal environment. Despite such constraints and challenges, the provincial government, through the Department of Health, has remained committed on delivering on its constitutional mandate of ensuring progressive universal access to health care, inclusive of reproductive health services. We have therefore allocated 81.922 billion rand over the 2022 MTF to the Department of Health, of which 27.362 billion is allocated for this financial year. I'm certain that the MEC would have thought the 89 billion should have been for this financial year instead of the MTF. Of this year's allocation, an amount of 1.567 billion is allocated for health infrastructure, and a total of 4.9692 billion over the 2022 MTF period for maintenance and repairs, upgrades and additions, and rehabilitation and refurbishment for health facilities, including new infrastructure assets. Furthermore, included in the department's allocation is additional funding of 951.606 million in 2022-23 and 1.994 billion over the 2022 MTF to continue support against the COVID-19 pandemic, vaccination program, and to reduce the impact of budget reductions on essential medical goods and services at hospitals. Madam Speaker, the province has the responsibility to transform our society by building conscious and capable citizens through the provision of integrated developmental social services, with families at the core of social change. A total amount of 8.480 billion rand has been allocated to the Department of Social Development over the 2022 MTF, of which 2.788 billion rand is allocated for 2023, 22-23. From this allocation, an amount of 31.732 million in 2022-23, and a total of 100.214 million over the 2022 MTF has been allocated to strengthen and intensify gender-based violence program and psychosocial support services to victims of crime and violence. To fight poverty and sustainable livelihoods, we are putting 4.439 million rand in 2022-23 and a total of 45.6 million over the 2022 MTF to fund food security and nutrition initiatives. Honorable members, while we put all our efforts into accelerating the economic recovery, it's equally important that we collectively subject ourselves to a fiscally sustainable path that will generate long-lasting impact. This time calls for everyone to join in the path of fiscal consolidation. If we are to find balance between our spending and income, our spending is already higher than our income. We should be utilizing our own provincial revenue for other developmental projects and not to cover budget deficits. To achieve this, it will require sound fiscal and public expenditure control. One of the measures that the province is implementing is the reprioritization of departmental baseline budgets to respond to the anticipated upsurge in service delivery demands post-COVID-19 lockdowns. Optimal response in this regard will entail, among other things, departments conducting periodic expenditure reviews on key service delivery programs and expenditure items, adopting reforms to curb excessive costs and waste in procurement. Similarly, we must ensure that infrastructure projects are delivered on time and within budget. The delivery of infrastructure projects not on time and within budget is costing the province hugely. We also must ensure strict monitoring and enforcement of all adopted cost containment measures and expenditure controls on non-core items, and effectively make use of the modern solutions that are brought by latest technology. Honorable members, the province also continues with the enhancement of provincial-owned revenue to reinforce our fiscal muscle, emanating from the outcomes of the research that identified the departments of public works and infrastructure, transport, health and economic development, environmental affairs and tourism to implement the new sources of provincial-owned revenue. We did table the study in this August House. These sources are in the main in respect of the rental and lease of state-owned properties by charging market-related rent by the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. The efficient collection of license renewals at registering authorities through an online system and the collection of traffic fines and at weigh bridges for overload control by the Department of Transport. The Department of Health is implementing an online collection system from hospitals, and the expansion of limited payout machines by the Eastern Gambling Board under DDIT. Departments have in this regard prepared their revenue 3-year plans and are already in their first year of implementation. If implemented correctly, this will have a great fiscal benefit for the province. Madam Speaker, the lack of good governance and accountability generally being displayed by the state organs has lowered our economic growth capabilities, just as it had lowered our service delivery capabilities. There is no better time for state organs to rid themselves of unethical conduct, including corruption. We have successfully removed all conflicted officials who have done business with the state from the central supplier database, a practice that painted this government in a negative light in the recent past. I've been assured by the HOD this morning, Honorable Premier, that so far the department still remain with 0 officials that have done business with the state as compared to the last report that we handed to you. We are also cleaning our system of those who are potentially conflicted by registering their companies on CST. You must remember that all those that have registered in the CST are lying low. They registered a company, they have not traded yet, and are just waiting for the perfect opportunity to trade. And there's nothing we can do in actually removing them, because we are not in control of the central supplier database. We've written to the national minister to indicate that they must find a system that would talk to the CSD system, that would, whenever you register, if your ID appears and shows that you're working for government, it removes you. So we are trying to clean that. But we will not, the provincial government will not hesitate to institute consequence management should there be officials that are found to have done business with the state. Honorable Speaker, with the negative economic outlook and increasing demand on public services, it's evident that allocations alone will not be adequate in accelerating the development of our province. A high level of discipline is no longer an option, but a precondition for this budget to have the desired effect. While we are making progress in addressing developmental challenges, more effort is still needed towards better management of resources. In this regard, government will continue to strengthen governance, notably the capacity of internal audit, risk management, and audit committees. The pervasive weaknesses in management systems, including poor planning, underspending of conditional grants, wastage, and irregular expenditure, must be eradicated. A decisive leadership across sectors is required to promote a culture of accountability where poor performance and irregularities, which sometimes camouflage corruption, is not tolerated. One of the indicators we use when measuring good governance is the audit outcomes. We are pleased to report that there has been a slight improvement in our audit outcomes, with 4 of the 14 departments from 2 having now received clean audits, clean audit outcomes. 7 received unqualified audit opinions with findings, while 3 received qualified audit opinions during the 2020-21 audit period. The Department of Sports, Recreation, Arts and Culture, and the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs are the 2 that improved from unqualified findings to clean audits. The incentive will be announced very soon. You must find a way and speak to the Premier for that incentive. It does not reside with Treasury, it resides with the Premier. Increased support is being given to move the only 3 qualified departments, that is Department of Education, the Department of Health, and the Department of Transport, to unqualified audit in the medium term. I'm sure, Honorable Premier, once everyone is unqualified, we'll then start thinking about the incentive as being campaigned by the 2 MECs. We are also encouraged by the performance of the public entities. Of the 11 that we have in the province, 7 received clean audit outcomes, and 4 were unqualified with findings. The government will continue to support improvements in this area. Hence, we call on accounting officers to keep to the basics as outlined in the Provincial Improvement Plan. Key to these issues is to do accounting routines timelessly, apply correct supervision and continuous training of the teams involved in these processes, so that nothing is left to the time of the audit when the pressure builds up. The other critical aspect is the focused oversight by all those charged with this responsibility, hence the call for audit committees to have audit improvement featuring strongly in their plans to complement the work done by Provincial Treasury and the legislature. Through a collaboration of efforts by the Office of the Premier, Provincial Treasury, and Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, we continue to give support to our municipalities. We are slowly making progress in reducing the scale of unfunded budgets. Although we have reduced them from 14 in 2020-2021 to 9 municipalities during the 21-22, we are targeting to achieve 0 unfunded budgets by the year 2024-25 budget year. We are also hoping that it could be earlier, missing not. This would bring municipalities in the province to 100% funded budgets and will be a step towards municipal budget sustainability. Provincial Treasury will continue to monitor and intensify support to municipalities that are in crisis, including those that are under Section 139 of the Constitution. Let me take this opportunity to remind councillors and officials that we expect financially responsible budgeting and financially responsible expenditure and revenue management to improve the financial health of municipalities. Work is underway on providing assistance to municipalities to eliminate wasteful, fruitless, and irregular expenditure. All municipalities in the province have established the disciplinary boards to address financial misconduct in our municipalities. This would assist to bring officials and councillors to account for any financial misconduct and to restore good governance in managing financial affairs of the municipal councils. Provincial Treasury will continue working with COCTA and SALGA to build capacities to municipal public accounts committees, commonly known as MPACs, as a key player in the unauthorized, irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure value chain. To address conditions that result in the slow investigation of the UIFFW expenditure, the slow spending patterns of conditional grants remains another area of concern. Eastern Cape is one of the provinces which continue to incur heavy financial losses as a result of rejected rollovers and stopping and reallocations. As a province that relies mainly on conditional grants to implement our infrastructure expansion programs, these losses require urgent attention. We cannot, as a province, afford the losses, especially on infrastructure projects where departments cannot spend, where municipalities cannot spend. That is not affordable, given the fiscal muscle that we have as a province. Reflecting on a similar situation that we are now facing, an American author, Grant Cardone, once said, "No economy, no matter how bad, can hold down a goal that is followed by enough action," close quote. Honorable members, in the midst of economic constraints and changing world certainties, if we remain resolute to our goal of a better life for all and act with dedication, integrity, and purpose, utilizing all funding at our disposal in the most prudent manner, we will prevail. The hopes and aspirations of our people shall never be in vain. We have committed ourselves to defeat all the odds to achieve sustainable human development in our lifetime. As I conclude, Madam Speaker, we appreciate all hands placed at the disposal of our provincial government to crystallize this budget. The leadership of Premier Oscar Mabuyane and the support from all the EXCOM members and the support from this august legislature has always been the dependable fountain of strength that we value so dearly. Team Treasury, under stewardship of Eshu Dimacheke, we're genuinely thankful to your dedication, commitment, and precision to mold an ever difficult budget. Amadenga wetyala. Sondelani ke ngoko sidwesha namaqhubukazana wakwethu. Ndiyabulela. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you, honorable members. You may be seated. Thank you, honorable members. Honorable members. Honorable Deputy Chief. Yes. Geen probleem nie. The bill stands referred to the Portfolio Committee on Finance and Provincial Expenditure in terms of Rule 161. Honorable members, this concludes the business for the day, and the House will adjourn until Tuesday, the 15th of March, 2022 at 2:15 for the tabling of budget votes 2022-2023. The House is therefore adjourned.
Mike, you live, you live.
You don't mind the spelling. I mean, of course, Mr. Makota, the budget speech has just concluded, and we are joined by the MEC for Education in the Eastern Cape, Unamakhosa Salameth. MEC, what are your reactions to the budget that was given today? Are you happy with the allocation given to the Department of Education?
Good afternoon to you and the viewers. I'm the MEC for Health in the province. What can we do? Complaining doesn't help. We are just comforted by the fact that the budget cuts that we were seeing coming before this budget speech, they've not seen the light of the day. At least the 27.3 billion that we've been allocated is almost the same like what we allocated in the previous financial year. But we were worried when we were seeing that other sectors, they are getting serious top slicing, even though there is a budget cut, but it's not as it was anticipated. So what we have received, we will do what we were told, because if you remember, the MEC for Finance said the core message of the day is reprioritization, because the fiscal environment we are in, it suggests that we are strict in how we do our work. We use whatever we have, however small it is, and try to do more with the little that we are getting.
And then MEC, your Department of Health in the Eastern Cape has been plagued by a lot of issues, especially recently. You know, it's been marred by strikes of healthcare workers saying that the department's not doing enough. Do you think that from the budget you've been allocated now, you'll be able to sort of fix those sort of problems that the Department of Health was facing?
Actually, it's the opposite. For 2021-2022, we've seen stability in terms of the unions and labor relations issues. There was stability. There were not much of the protests by the employees. The only thing that was spoiled, it was the issue of the contract workers, the COVID-19 workers, who we could not renew their contract because, of course, there were a special intervention because there was a disaster. So we had a budget to deal with them only for this financial year, unfortunately. So we could not renew their contract. And we understand the issue again where we failed to take the com service employees for the post-com serve, which is something again that it is because of what we are experiencing, because all of us have been saying, I think everybody knows by now, that we had this serious issue of medical legal claims that made us to start the year 2021-2022 with a budget shortfall of 4.5 billion, which then necessitated that we cut some of the issues or some of the activities that we were doing as a department. But otherwise, we are saying, come 2022-2023, we'll do all what we could, like how we've done in the past year. Remember, we're also even scared that come the end of the year, maybe we'll be not able to pay the salaries of the employees. But at least we are here now, we are almost in March, and we are paying the salaries of employees. So we're saying it's not all that is lost. We can try to do more with what we have.
Thank you very much, MEC. Thank you. That was the MEC of Health in the Eastern Cape, Unamakhosa Salameth, saying not all is lost and that the budget is not enough for the department, but they will make do with what they have. And now we are joined by another member of... Sorry about that. We're joined by the Chairperson of Finance in the province of the Eastern Cape. Chair, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Good afternoon to your viewers as well at home on this important day for the Eastern Cape. Thank you very much.
It is quite an important day for the Eastern Cape. Could you just give us some of your reactions to the budget that was tabled today?
I must be upfront to say, yes, under the difficult circumstances surrounding the finances and the economic condition of the country itself, and the issues surrounding the growth in unemployment, inequality and poverty, and recently the wars that are beginning to come into the space. it is the budget that one can say is what we have at our disposal currently. And if you look at it, there's not very much in terms of the movements insofar as the increments that every one of us would have expected. However, in terms of getting the footage to accelerate the work around education in areas that we have found ourselves behind, I think the province at least is in a better space now to get to close those gaps that we had earlier on around your stationery, around the payment of your GAs and the educators that were appointed, and all those hiccups that we have had. So relatively speaking, I think if we are prudent, especially in reference to departments, it must be the budget that at least keeps the light on and makes us to deliver as the province. So we will continue to play our oversight as the legislature and committees of the legislature to ensure that what is said in the annual provincial plans and as well as what is put and what is appropriated insofar as finances are concerned is indeed delivered and it's done effectively and equitably as well. That's what I would say currently.
Okay, thank you so much, Chairperson. That was the Chairperson of Finance saying that it is up to provincial government to ensure that all the money that is allocated is used the way it's supposed to be used. And now we are joined by another Member of Parliament getting more reactions to this speech. MEC, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
What are some of your reactions to today's budget speech?
It was a very difficult one considering the fiscal environment that we're operating under. However, it's still balanced. I am happy as the chairperson of the social transformation cluster that almost 70% of the budget goes to our cluster. We have had challenges with respect to education, and seeing the increase in the budget of education as well as health is comforting for us. However, I am a little bit disappointed because for my department there hasn't been any increase. Overall, it was a balanced budget given the circumstances.
Thank you so much. And that was the MEC saying that she's a bit disappointed her department didn't get as much of an increase as she would have liked. Those are some of the reactions, Mr. Makora, that are coming through from outside Raymond Mhlaba Chambers, Apa Episho, where the budget was tabled today. Back to you in studio.